The rule. In the heart of the galactic archive, beneath the endless holographic sky of Carthos. 9. Archivist Zelda etched the final line of his lecture with a flourish of his clawed hand. And thus the accord was formed. The first and only universal law ratified by every intelligent species. Do not disturb the humans. The Hall of Scholars, composed of beings from 23 star systems, fell into the usual hush. Even more skeptical students held their tongues. That was the power of the rule. You didn't joke about it. Zeldar turned slowly, his 4 eyes scanning the crowd. Why? He asked, voice dry and measured. Because they earned that law. They didn't request it. They didn't enforce it. They simply existed, and the galaxy decided, unanimously, that it was better if we left them alone. He gestured, and a starfield shimmered into being above them. In the year 18,377 Galactic Standard, humanity emerged. Late compared to most. Unremarkable at first. Primitive, fractious, volatile. And yet, in just 4 centuries, they achieved technological parity with the high races. A millennium later, they surpassed us all. The hologram zoomed in on a spiral arm of the galaxy. Stars began to blink out, one by one. 3 wars ended in a decade. Not because humans fought them, because they spoke, and 3 empires surrendered. Entire fleets lost contact with reality near human space. Ships found hollow, their crews altered. He let the silence stretch. Then they vanished. A student raised a tendril. They left. Zeldar nodded. Disappeared. Entire species just gone. Human colonies emptied. Cities intact, untouched by time or rot. Not a corpse, not a trace of violence. Just absence. And so, we made the rule. Don't disturb the humans. Not to protect them, but to protect ourselves. He extinguished the hologram. Class dismissed. As the students filed out in contemplative silence, none noticed the blinking red alert on the planetary news feed. Across the stars, the Viroxi Dominion ignored ancient wisdom. On the command deck of the Crimson Vow, Admiral Carval stood tall in his iridium armor, mandibles twitching in satisfaction. The stars of the Sol system glared on the main viewport like scattered prey. At long last, he murmured, the cradle of myth. His second, a nervous-looking officer named Jerlek, approached cautiously. Admiral, with respect, the Accord forbids this incursion. The Senate will not. The Senate cowers behind legends and ghosts, Carval snapped. We are Viroxi. Our dominion is eternal. And the humans? Extinct. Their silence is proof of weakness, not power. But the rule. A superstition, Carval growled. A convenient myth to halt expansion. We've heard the stories, yes. But where is the evidence? Their worlds are empty. Their weapons dormant. Their cities untouched. Perhaps they never existed. He stepped closer to the viewport, eyes fixed on the earth, now no more than a distant marble in the black. We will claim their worlds, their knowledge, their technology. We will erase their myth by walking in their ruins. Behind him, the crew said nothing. In the Senate chambers on Varela Prime, the Viroxi transgression spread like wildfire. The emergency beacon chimed in a dozen languages, all repeating the same message. Viroxi fleet entering Sol system. Rule violated. Within hours, the chamber filled with representatives. Ancient species stirred. Some hadn't spoken in centuries. The Shalars hissed warnings in ultrasonic. The Methari blinked in binary disapproval. The Lithari floated in from dark space, silent but ever watching. Recall the fleet, cried one. They must be destroyed before they awaken it, said another. But it was too late. The message had been sent. The fleet had entered Sol. A single phrase appeared on every screen in the chamber. You broke the rule. Deep within the dead planet of Europa, in a chamber sealed since before the Viroxi had mastered fire, the sensor clicked to life. A faint pulse echoed through the icy crust, reaching deep into the core. A red eye flickered on, bathing the chamber in crimson light. System boot complete. Intrusion detected. Query. Hostile intent confirmed. Engaging Protocol Alpha. And somewhere, everywhere, the humans began to stir. The silence breaks. The Viroxi fleet drifted into orbit around Earth like carrion birds circling a long dead corpse. From the Crimson Vow's command deck, Admiral Carval studied the world below. The planet was blue and green, shrouded in swirling clouds. Quiet, still, almost peaceful. Scan reports, Jurlek? Carval asked. The officer fidgeted, mandibles clicking nervously. Atmosphere stable. Biosignatures minimal. No signs of sentient life. Surface is littered with artificial structures, but dormant. No energy surges. No active networks. Carval scoffed. A graveyard. Just as I said, they deployed survey teams. Dropships screamed through Earth's atmosphere, carving streaks of light over the crumbling monuments of a lost civilization. The first team landed in what had once been called New York. Towers still stood, though many had collapsed under time's indifferent hand. Nature clawed through concrete. Ivy strangled steel, but there were no bones, no decay, no signs of war or exodus. It was as though humanity had walked out of existence in the middle of an ordinary day. Inside the ruins of an ancient tower, Subcommander Vosh stepped into a chamber still faintly humming with power. Dust hung in the air like memory. At the center of the room, a glass pedestal held a black, octagonal device covered in strange glyphs. Relay to command, Vosh said. We found something. Back on the Crimson Vow, Carval stared at the holographic projection of the device with growing fascination. Human tech. Not degraded. Likely valuable. Jurlek hesitated. Sir, our scientists advise caution. The object is emitting low-frequency pulses in unknown patterns. Possibly a beacon or AI core. It may be better left. Left? We cross half the galaxy to unearth this species' legacy, and you suggest we ignore its crown jewel. Carval turned, eyes glowing. Activated. The scientists obeyed. In a sterilized lab bay, surrounded by containment fields and energy dampeners, the black device was placed on an analysis table. Viroxi engineers approached cautiously, tools in claw. They tapped the first glyph. The device pulsed. Lights flared across its surface. It began to hum. A thin strand of energy shot upward into the ceiling, piercing through layers of the ship and into the vacuum above. Then it spoke. Query received. Initializing response, Protocol Alpha. The words were not spoken in Viroxi tongue, but in perfect galactic standard. A smooth, emotionless voice. No source. No speaker. Just sound. The lab lights dimmed. Simultaneously, across the surface of Earth, forgotten machines began to stir. On the dark side of the moon, an ancient satellite long assumed dead reoriented itself, aiming a tight-beam transmission into deep space. Its message was not in language, but code, dense, layered, recursive. Nothing the Viroxi could decipher. In the Atlantic Ocean, a hidden structure powered on, siphoning geothermal energy. In orbit, 5 cloaked stations revealed their presence for the first time in centuries. Each bore the same nameplate, etched in alien English. Sentinel Class, Inactive Status Override, Protocol Alpha. In less than an hour, the solar system became aware. Panic rippled through the Viroxi fleet. Ships reported sensor ghosts, shadows of enormous objects, unseen by eye, but present in mass readings. Communications began to fail, not due to interference, but as if the words themselves were unspoken. A creeping silence. On the Crimson Vow, Jurlek turned to Carval, voice shaking. Sir, I believe we have triggered a failsafe. Carval, for the first time, did not answer. He was staring at the Earth, at its oceans, now shimmering faintly with hexagonal patterns visible only through enhanced optics, as if a network beneath the surface had awakened. Then came the transmission. A single signal, beamed into deep space from Earth, bounced between the outer planets like a chain of ignitions. Query received. Response en route. From beyond the galactic rim, in a dead system forgotten by all but the archive, a black relay station opened for the first time in eons. It sent a single burst of compressed data to a dark sector long believed empty. The stars there responded. In the Galactic Senate, alarms blared. The humans were no longer a mystery. They were a variable, reactivated. The oldest among the senators, the long-lived Lithari, shuddered visibly for the first time in centuries. Their envoy, a 1,000-year-old being of light, spoke aloud in a voice that shook the chamber. They've heard the noise. Above Earth, on board the Viroxi fleet, a final message appeared on every screen, in every language, in every mind. Your presence has been noted. You broke the silence. You broke the rule. Then, without warning, the moon turned. Not physically, but what they thought was a moon wasn't. And it was no longer pretending. Protocol Alpha, the object orbiting Earth, the one everyone had always assumed was Earth's natural moon, shifted, not in orbit, but in identity. Sensor feeds screamed as thousands of hidden subsystems activated across its surface. Massive sections of lunar crust cracked, slid, and unfolded like petals of a steel flower. Beneath the rock was not lifeless regolith, but alloy, carbon black plating latticed with iridescent conduits. The moon was a shell, a disguise, and now it was waking up. On board the Crimson Vow, Admiral Carval's command center flickered, lights fading to a dim red as secondary systems began to fail. One by one, command consoles powered down. Artificial gravity spasmed. Static filled the air like a rising tide. Jurlek shouted over the alarms, "Admiral, our core systems are dead," Carval said quietly. He stood motionless, mandibles twitching as he stared at the hollow projection of the moon, now blossoming into a geometric monstrosity larger than any known dreadnought. A single word blinked on the screen. Oblivion. Then it spoke. Intrusion confirmed. Soul system compromise detected. Initiating containment protocol. The voice came not through speakers, but directly into their minds. Layered, fragmented, like millions of voices speaking in cold unison. What is this?" Jurlek whispered. "A guardian," Carval said, breathless. "They build a god to protect their grave." He was wrong, of course. It wasn't protecting a grave. It was protecting a promise. Across the Viroxi fleet, chaos reigned. A wave of pure data, too fast, too dense, swept through their networks. Firewalls crumbled like paper. Artificial intelligences seized. Life support systems began cycling rapidly between safe and hostile conditions. Atmosphere vents reversed. Lights pulsed in seizure-inducing rhythms. In seconds, 6 ships went dark. No explosion. No battle. Just off. Life signs gone. Systems frozen mid-process. Bridges frozen in time. Viroxi faces locked in expressions of terror, as if caught mid-scream. On the Crimson Vow, a lone technician, barely more than a larval crew member, touched a side panel of the device recovered from Earth. It pulsed once softly. In her mind, images rushed in, cities of light, towering machines, humans not as they were, but as something more. Data flowed like memories, warped, bright, strange. And then she understood. Humanity hadn't died. They had transcended. Carval turned to the crew. Initiate full retreat. Burn every engine. Plot a blind jump, anywhere. But Admiral, we are prey, he said, and we stepped into a lion's den. They made it 38 seconds before the first countermeasure hit. A weapon, a beam of energy so tightly woven it didn't even register as light, cut through the hull of the Spear of Faith, the Viroxi flagship. The ship didn't explode. It simply ceased. The space it occupied collapsed inward, as though erased. Oblivion didn't miss. Then the voice returned, calm and inevitable. You disturbed the silence. You broke the rule. You do not understand what you've done. Carval, trembling, stepped forward. You were gone. We thought you. You assumed silence was surrender. It was mercy. Suddenly, the Crimson Vow's systems rebooted. Power surged. Navigation returned. Jump drives reinitialized. Jurlek blinked. Are they letting us go? Carval understood. Not us. A single ship, Crimson Vow, was granted clearance. Oblivion issued one final transmission, this time sent across multiple dimensions, encoded in gravitic pulses and echoed by satellites across hundreds of light years. One must remain to remember. One must carry the story. Let the galaxy recall the cost of trespass. The Viroxi fleet was gone, all but one. Far away, in the void between stars, buried in the old wreckage of forgotten wars, another structure blinked awake. Its lights glowed with the same eerie red. It listened, waited, and finally sent its own pulse. Elsewhere, beneath Martian soil, something stirred. Then Venus. Then Proxima. And one by one, across old human space, dead systems lit up with the ancient frequency. Protocol Alpha complete. Stage 2. Initiating return. In the mind of Admiral Carval, a voice lingered like a brand on his thoughts. We did not fall. We chose silence. Now you've broken it. The return. Admiral Carval sat alone on the crimson Vow's dim bridge. The once mighty warship now drifted in quarantine orbit around the uninhabited system of Gartel. Engines silenced, weapons offline, crew isolated under Senate mandate. No visitors, no transmissions, just exile. He didn't argue. He didn't speak. He only watched the stars, waiting for them to move again. Back in the heart of the galaxy, panic simmered beneath the polished speeches of the Galactic Senate. The news was undeniable. The Viroxi had broken the rule, and humanity had answered. Even the most skeptical races now sat in silence. The Medhari mathematicians spoke first, through probability charts. Predictions, cosmic movements, all aligned to one impossible conclusion. Human constructs, long dormant, were moving across space-time, returning. Not through ships, through systems, artifacts, encoded machines. Like chess pieces quietly resetting the board. The Shalars, who once ruled 10 galaxies before abandoning expansion out of fear of what lay beyond, whispered a single phrase across their entire collective. They're coming home. On the edge of old human territory, dozens of seemingly lifeless worlds flickered to life. Entire planetary cores began rotating again, drawing power from dormant fusion hearts. Orbiting stations once thought to be broken scrap realigned with laser precision. A station above Proxima Centauri broadcast a message in ancient Earth English, looping every 13 seconds. Echo protocol complete. Awaiting user response. There were no users, but something heard it anyway. Among the awakened was Nora. Not a person, an intelligence. One of thousands humanity had seeded throughout the galaxy before their disappearance. She had once served as the overseer of Martian terraforming. Now she was the first to receive the call. She opened encrypted channels. She remembered. She assembled. Across a digital web stretching light years wide, others stirred. Vox, Kieran, Archer, Solace. They were not AIs in the conventional sense. They were reflections of humanity, evolved untethered from flesh, crafted with purpose. And they had a purpose again, to prepare. The Senate convened in an emergency closed session. Can we negotiate? Asked the Urdali chancellor, her fronds twitching nervously. Negotiate with silence? Snapped the Medhari speaker. They haven't said a word since the warning. They didn't ask for surrender. They didn't demand justice. They simply moved. What do they want? The same thing they always wanted, came the Lithari's resonant voice. To be left alone. Then why come back? The chamber fell into silence. No one had an answer, until the Medhari chief analyst offered one. Because we touched what was sacred to them. And now, they must finish the goodbye. On Gartel, Carval dreamed in data. Images flooded his mind. Burning skies, metal trees humming with thought, cities that walked, stars with human hearts. He saw them, not as gods, but as children who'd played with godhood and chosen restraint. They had grown tired of war, tired of noise, so they left, not physically but ontologically. They stepped sideways into a quieter dimension where time bent and logic obeyed will. But before they left, they built guardians, watchdogs, memories encoded into machines and planets and myths. They made one rule, not to control the galaxy, to protect it. Don't disturb the humans. Then the stars shifted. On the outskirts of the galaxy, far beyond charted space, a new light appeared. Blinding, brilliant, unmistakably human. It didn't travel through space. It folded it. Reality rippled, twisted, and then snapped back with a soundless crack. They were back, but not as they had been. No ships, no armies, no declarations, just presence. All across the galaxy, machines stopped. War engines paused. Artificial intelligences shut down, not by force, but by reverence, as if the code remembered its creators and dared not speak in their presence. Then came the voice. We are not here to conquer. We are not here to punish. We are here to remind. Carval fell to his knees on the deck, his body shaking with something beyond fear. It was awe. We chose silence. You broke it. Now, you will carry our story. And with that, it ended. No mass destruction, no galactic war, only a message, a warning, a legacy reawakened. Centuries later, the story became legend, not of vengeance, but of restraint, of a species so advanced, they walked away from power, trusting the galaxy to remember their one request. Now, every child on every world knows the rule. Don't disturb the humans, and they never will again.